What if we stopped recycling? Imagine a regular morning in the year 2040. You step outside your home, but instead of breathing in fresh air, your nose is hit by the stench of decaying plastic. Trash bins overflow on both sides of the street because no one separates their waste anymore. The river near your house has turned into a dark sludge, filled with floating milk cartons, plastic bags, and bottles. It's not that people forgot to do something, it's that we chose to stop recycling. At first, it might not sound like a big deal. Who hasn't thought, what harm could one misplaced soda can do? But what if billions of people think the same, and the entire global recycling system collapses? What would happen if we stopped altogether? No more recycling plastic, paper, metal, or glass. The consequences wouldn't just pile up in landfills, they'd flood our oceans, pollute our air, and even make their way into our blood. Recycling was once seen as a small act with a big impact. But if we were to completely halt recycling, no sorting, no collecting, no reusing, the result wouldn't just be a little more trash. It would be an environmental crisis like nothing we've ever seen. Let's start with the simplest fact. Waste doesn't disappear. Every year, the world produces over 2 billion tons of garbage, including hundreds of millions of tons of plastic, paper, metal, and glass, materials that could be recycled but often end up buried in landfills. Without recycling, all of it would go straight into the environment, accelerating the process of turning our planet into one giant dump. Landfills, which are already overflowing in many developed countries, would sprawl into suburbs, forests, rivers, and even the sea. What were once fertile fields and neighborhoods would become artificial hills of garbage, where soil is poisoned, groundwater is tainted by toxic leachate, and methane, a superpotent greenhouse gas, leaks from anaerobic decomposition. Plastic waste, in particular, is the most stubborn villain. A single plastic bottle can take up to 450 years to decompose, and it doesn't just sit still during that time. Wind, rain, and waterways carry plastic from land into rivers and eventually out to sea. Scientists estimate that without recycling, by 2050, there could be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Natural ecosystems, mangroves, coral reefs, river deltas, would become massive garbage dumps. Sea turtles mistake plastic bags for jellyfish. Seabirds die from eating colorful plastic fragments. Fish become entangled in nylon nets. These aren't just shocking images on social media, they'd become the norm. Wildlife already stressed by climate change and habitat loss would face another deadly blow from our trash. But nature wouldn't be the only victim. We'd suffer too. Poorly managed waste breeds disease. Burning trash without proper standards pollutes the air. And the chain reaction affects economies, public health, and food security. Stopping recycling doesn't just mean more garbage. It shatters part of the delicate balance between humans and the environment, already fragile after centuries of industrial development. One seemingly small choice, halting recycling, could tip the planet into a future buried beneath our own waste. Now picture yourself standing on a beach in 2070. The sun still shines. Waves still crash. But instead of soft sand and seashells, your feet crunch down on shards of plastic, bottle caps, and shredded plastic bags. In the distance, a turtle floats, a clear plastic wrapper still clutched in its mouth, mistaking it for a jellyfish, one of its favorite foods. Even with recycling systems still in place today, over 8 million tons of plastic enter the oceans each year. If we stop recycling entirely, that number could skyrocket, triggering a plastic tsunami that drowns marine life. The ocean, once the cradle of life and home to more than 80% of all species on Earth, would become a graveyard. Turtles, whales, dolphins, seabirds, coral reefs, from giants to plankton, would fall victim. Tangled in nylon nets, suffocated, starved by plastic clogging their digestive tracts. But the tragedy doesn't stop there. Plastic doesn't vanish. It breaks down into microplastics. These tiny fragments, invisible to the naked eye, infiltrate every layer of the sea. They're eaten by shrimp, fish, shellfish, and continue up the food chain. When small fish eat microplastics, then bigger fish eat them, and finally, humans are the last link in this plastic transmission line. Studies have found microplastics in tuna guts, bottled water, sea salt, and even in human blood and placentas. Far from harmless, microplastics carry toxic chemicals like BPA and phthalates, known to disrupt hormones, cause chronic inflammation, and contribute to serious reproductive problems. And the damage doesn't stop at the ocean floor. When coral reefs die under a blanket of trash, when fish lose their habitats, when bottom-dwelling creatures vanish, the entire marine food web begins to collapse. This leads to a crisis in the fishing industry, a vital lifeline for more than 3 billion people around the world. Losing seafood doesn't just mean a loss of nutrition. It means millions of fishermen, especially in developing countries, lose their livelihoods. When the oceans die, people suffer, and the collapse of marine food sources could spark a domino effect. Economic turmoil, climate-driven migration, and widespread social unrest. At that point, the issue isn't just plastic in the ocean. It's an entire chain reaction waiting to collapse, all triggered by one seemingly trivial action: tossing away a plastic bottle and choosing not to recycle it. The ocean can't cry for help, but every bloated fish stuffed with plastic, every turtle lost in a drifting plastic bag, is a silent scream we can no longer ignore. We are drowning the seas in a material we created. And if we stop recycling altogether, the day may come when people no longer visit the ocean for relaxation, because it will no longer be an ocean. It will be the largest garbage dump on Earth. Recycling isn't just an environmental gesture, it's a crucial link in the global economy, quietly but critically supporting millions of jobs. From collection and sorting to processing and remanufacturing, the global recycling industry employs countless workers. Thousands of factories depend on recycled materials to operate efficiently and cost-effectively. But if we abandon recycling, this economic engine will stall, and the ripple effects will be global. Without recycled inputs, industries will be forced to extract raw materials like timber, iron ore, and petroleum. That means using billions more gallons of water, millions more units of energy, and tens of billions of dollars just to make the same products. And that's not all. Extracting virgin resources causes deforestation, contaminates groundwater, and spikes carbon emissions, undoing decades of progress in the fight against climate change. Industries that rely heavily on recycled content, such as paper, plastic, packaging, metals, and electronics manufacturing, will be hit the hardest. Without access to cheap, readily available recycled materials, production costs will skyrocket. Small businesses will buckle under the pressure, closing their doors or laying off workers. Larger corporations will pass the increased costs onto consumers. Prices will rise, supply chains will falter, and the economy could spiral into inflation. Worse still, developing countries, where recycling is often the main source of income for millions, will suffer a double blow. They'll lose both their livelihoods and be forced to pay higher prices for everyday goods. Halting recycling isn't just a step backward environmentally, it's a devastating hit to global economic sustainability. A system once optimized to turn trash into treasure would be replaced by one that is more expensive, more polluting, and more unjust. And when the resource cycle breaks down, the cost isn't just financial, it's planetary resilience itself. Climate change is no longer some distant concept. It's already here, in the form of record-breaking heat waves in North America, violent storms in Asia, and prolonged droughts across Africa. Earth is speaking. And if we stop recycling, that voice will only get louder and more destructive. The reason is simple. Manufacturing from raw materials emits far more greenhouse gases than using recycled ones. Recycling aluminum saves up to 95% of the energy needed to produce it from bauxite. Recycling steel saves about 70%, paper around 40%. These numbers may seem dry, but they are the silent shield guarding our climate. Without recycling, every item we need in life and industry, from packaging and electronics to cars and airplanes, would have to be made from scratch. That means burning millions of tons of coal, natural gas, and oil to extract, transport, and process raw materials. The result? A dramatic spike in CO2 emissions. And it doesn't stop there. Non-recycled waste, especially organic matter left to rot in landfills, produces methane, a greenhouse gas more than 25 times more powerful than CO2 at trapping heat. As a result, the Earth will warm faster than ever before. Rising global temperatures trigger irreversible consequences. Melting polar ice caps, rising sea levels that swallow coastal cities, shifting ocean currents that disrupt weather patterns, failed crops due to droughts and floods, and mass extinction as species lose their habitats. Humans won't be spared. Major cities will endure unbearable heat, widespread wildfires, water shortages, and climate refugees fleeing unlivable environments. And here's the bitter truth. Much of this could be prevented by one simple action: continuing to recycle. Because when we stop recycling, we're not just refusing to reuse our waste, we're choosing to accelerate global warming. We're choosing a world where climate change isn't just the future, it's the nightmare we're stepping into every single day. When we think of plastic waste, most of us picture open dumps, bottles bobbing in the ocean, or heartbreaking images of sea turtles choking on plastic bags. But the greatest threat from plastic isn't what we can see, it's what we can't: microplastics. And when the world stops recycling, these tiny plastic particles won't just drift through the oceans, they'll start making their way directly into our bodies. Plastic doesn't disappear, it simply breaks apart. A discarded water bottle left in the environment is exposed to sunlight, rain, wind, and friction, slowly degrading into particles so small the naked eye can't detect them, what we call microplastics. These fragments are so light they can float through the air, carried by the wind across cities, continents, and oceans. You might inhale them walking down the street, while opening a bedroom window, or even while cooking in your own kitchen. They've been found in rainwater, tap water, bottled water, sea salt, seafood, and crops grown near polluted areas. Recent studies from European and American universities have discovered microplastics in human blood, lung tissue, intestines, and even more shockingly, in the placentas of pregnant women, a place once thought to be an impenetrable shield for unborn children. The most alarming question scientists are asking now is no longer, are microplastics in the human body? But, how much damage are they causing? Microplastics aren't inert. They often carry toxic chemicals used during manufacturing, such as BPA, phthalates, and styrene, substances known to disrupt hormones, alter sexual development, impair fetal growth, and increase the risk of infertility, miscarriage, and birth defects. Worse still, these tiny particles can trigger chronic inflammation in tissues, gradually damaging organs over time. They're considered a hidden risk factor for cancer, cardiovascular disease, and neurological disorders. Even more troubling, they don't break down, aren't digested, and aren't easily expelled, meaning they can quietly build up in the body for years. If we stop recycling, the amount of plastic waste entering the environment will increase exponentially. That means more microplastics in the air, water, soil, and ultimately, on our dinner plates. Every bite of fish, every glass of water, every breath you take could contain synthetic material the human body was never meant to process. Microplastics won't kill you today, but they'll stay, silently and persistently, breaking down your body's most delicate biological systems. And the most tragic part is, this future could be avoided if we chose not to give up on recycling. But by choosing to abandon recycling, we're allowing our own waste to become toxins, flowing through the bloodstream of future generations. If we stop recycling, the consequences won't hit like a sudden storm. There won't be explosions or blaring sirens. Everything will unfold slowly, quietly, but steadily and irreversibly. Today, you might toss a plastic bottle in the regular trash and notice no difference. Tomorrow, there will be a bit more waste. A year from now, the ocean might seem murkier. A decade later, microplastics could be flowing in your bloodstream while your children grow up facing extreme heat, food shortages, and a toxic world. The Earth won't die right away. It will transform into a planet with no room left for waste. A place where every rainstorm carries chemicals, where the air you breathe is laced with microplastics, and where the cost of simply living, breathing, drinking, eating, skyrockets. Ecosystems will lose their ability to recover. Wildlife will disappear, species by species. Forests, rivers, and oceans, once the backbone of life, will become forgotten casualties. Every small action today, failing to sort your waste, skipping reuse, quietly builds a future with no way out. Recycling isn't a magic wand. It's not the single answer to saving the planet. But it is one of the last barriers we have left between ourselves and a future overflowing with waste, toxins, and instability. Giving it up would be like slamming shut the last emergency exit in a building quietly burning from within. Recycling is a chance to slow down the destruction, to buy time, to rebuild the cycle between humans and resources. It's proof that we can live smarter, waste less, and think further ahead about the consequences of our choices. And in a world already battling climate change, resource shortages, plastic pollution, and biodiversity collapse, every act of recycling, no matter how small, is a declaration. We still care enough to fight for life. Choosing to recycle isn't just about protecting the environment. It's about choosing to stand on the side of life, rather than letting our future be buried under the very waste we created.